Hi, Dr. Tina Childress here, and I wanted to make a short video that lets you guys know what I feel like things sound like through cochlear implants. So I am an audiologist. I am also a late-deafened adult, and I now have two cochlear implants. I got my first one in August of 2000, and I got my second one in December of 2005. So I've had my cochlear implants for a while now. I know that there's lots of simulations that are out there, and when you listen to them, it can be kind of scary. The sound files that I'm going to be playing for you today come from the link that you see down below at the bottom of the slide, and they were designed to kind of give you a sense of what it would sound like through different kinds of configurations of cochlear implants. And when I first started listening to them, I thought, hey, that's actually kind of what I think things sounded like. So I've kind of repurposed these sound files for this reason. So let's go ahead and begin. So when you get a cochlear implant for the first time and they turn it on, they always warn you to have kind of high hopes and low expectations because there's no way to predict how a person is going to react to their cochlear implants. And even what I hear through my cochlear implants may sound very different to someone else with a different hearing history, different auditory memory, things like that. So when I got my first cochlear implant and they turned it on, I thought things sounded like this. Let's play that again. So can you even tell if that is speech? Is it environmental sounds? It's speech. And here is what the original sentence is.
The boy did a handstand.
Okay, so what I heard was this, and it was this sentence.
The boy did a handstand.
Now, just like with any language, it doesn't happen automatically. It doesn't happen overnight. It's going to be a lot slower progress if you do it passively, meaning you just kind of are around people that speak in that language and you just kind of soak it all in. But if you were to do like lessons and you were to practice and you were to challenge yourself, then your progress is going to be faster. And so when I got my cochlear implant, that's what I did. I wore my cochlear implant throughout the day. I, practiced listening to things with visual cues, without visual cues. And after a while, things started getting better. So for me, this was like 30 days after I got my first cochlear implant. And, I was doing things like listening to books on tape. Yes, I'm that old. It was actually like audio cassette tapes. And that's what we had in terms of oral rehabilitation materials. Sometimes someone would read me something from the newspaper. So then after about a month of practicing, it sounded more like this. Okay, so you can tell that it's speech. You can hear kind of syllables going on, but you still don't know what's being said. So this is what the sentence actually is.
The dog growled at the neighbors.
Okay, so it went from this to this. Okay, so, at 30 days out, I still wasn't doing that great. I was still really relying on visual cues as well as the auditory information that I had, but things really did get better. And I would say by about day 100, so this is about 3 months, 3.5 months of listening and really practicing, things got better. And I noticed things like, oh, I think I understood that person and I wasn't even looking at them. So for me as a late deafened person, one of the skills that I really wanted out of my cochlear implants was to be able to understand on the phone again. So at about day 100, I thought, oh, let me see what happens if I try. And I think things sounded like this.
Her husband brought some flowers.
So It's not very natural sounding yet, but you could understand what was being said. So let's go through the chronology again. It sounded first like this, and then this, and then finally this.
Her husband brought some flowers.
So you can see that it definitely got better over time. So another thing happened at around day 1900-ish, meaning 5 years later, and that was when I got my second cochlear implant. And getting a second cochlear implant improved some things in my life. For example, I could now hear sounds that were previously on my unimplanted side. I could hear better in background noise. I could hear quieter sounds, whereas before I was not able to hear quieter sounds. So those are some of the benefits to being bilateral, besides the fact that now I could, also if my battery died on one side, I could still hear on the other side. So there are definitely benefits that way. So then now, today, 20 years later, after getting my cochlear implant, what does it sound like to me? So here is an example of what I think it sounds like to me now, as a former hearing person and now having had my implants for a long time.
Her husband brought some flowers.
So what does that sound like? It went from this to this to this
Her husband brought some flowers.
to this.
Her husband brought some flowers.
Is that really what it sounds like to me? And the answer is yes. I like to call that my new normal. The sounds that I now get through my cochlear implant gets changed from an acoustic signal to a digital signal, and it creates electrical impulses that stimulate my hearing nerve and sends all that information to our brain. And while, yes, we may hear with our ears, we actually perceive and understand with our brain. So everybody does different things with that information. Again, what I hear through my cochlear implants may be completely different compared to what someone else hears. I know that sometimes parents get really scared and think, oh my gosh, that sounds like a robot, or that sounds really mechanical. But you know what? Your baby doesn't know what a robot or, what mechanical sound sounds like. And so your job and my job as an audiologist and your teacher's job and everyone else that's involved in their auditory progress, our job is to help your kids make sense out of what they hear. And so, when I talk to other people that are also late-deafened, there are still things that we're going to struggle with. Noise is always going to be hard. Hearing very quiet sounds are going to be loud. But after a while, we get used to the sound. And for people that had normal hearing before, that's not what we hear. So I hope that was helpful for you, and I hope it helps you understand a little bit about what a cochlear implant may sound like. Thank you.